With us at this point, Monisha Gupta, who heads UK qualifications for the examinations division. I invite her now to come and talk to you more about different offerings that they have, but more specifically, I think they're going to talk about Aptis. And many of you might be aware what it is, but if you're not, I think this will be a very interesting session. Thank you.
Thanks, Arjun. Thank you. A very good afternoon to all of you. I hope you had some great lunch. Yes. Some good desserts? Yeah? So I can see some sweet smiles. And because this session is about assessments, and I think most of you are familiar and would be doing it with your students, quite often, assessments and tests, evaluation. We are very used to all these terms in our school environment. Now, this particular session is about how can assessments help language development. We generally, connect trainings with the language development, right? But do you really think the assessments, what is your feel about it? Do you really think the assessments help language development? Any of you? Do we have mics? Do you feel assessments help language development? I mean, do you have any idea how can they help language development of students? Any of you? Any English teachers here? Yes, ma'am.
How much he is doing, how well he is doing, he or she is doing. That's very important. Evaluations is very important.
Evaluation is very important for any subject. But when we talk about languages, you think a good assessment or the quality of an assessment is responsible for a good language development? Do you think there is a connect?
Yes, ma'am, surely it is.
Okay, so fine, good. We have an agreement right in the beginning. So do I need to do the session? Anyways. We are familiar with these terms, testing and assessments, and at times we use it parallelly. I mean, we call a particular, whenever we want to check the learning of a student, we at times use it synonymously as a test or as an assessment. But there is a difference. A test is a component of an assessment. Do you agree to that? Assessment is more like a continuous process. And a test is one task which we do, for a particular, learning which we want to test, that how much student has retained that learning which we have tried to give. So in testing, the focus is on what we do to learners after learning, that task. And assessment is the focus what we do with learners before, during, and after learning. Do you agree to that? So assessment is more comprehensive than a test. It includes the curriculum, or the way we are teaching. Do we need to change any methodology after the test? So this is a process. Assessment is more of a process. And why is assessment important in schools? They help in a proper diagnosis. It measures the progress of the learners. It measures effectiveness of teachers. Do we have principals in the over here, or the school management? Yes. So, we can check the effectiveness of teachers through the assessment. So, because how much the students have learned, or, based on their results, we can check how much the learning has been effective in a classroom. And apart from that, it helps in knowing what more can be done, what's going well, what is happening in the right direction, what is the motivation level of the students, what is the feedback which we are getting through them. So basically, it provides tangible results for all the stakeholders. When we say stakeholders, it involves teachers, school principals, management, parents, all of them. Through an assessment for a student, it helps student know more, and it helps teachers also. So a student can know, what I'm doing fine and how can I do better, and what else would I like to learn. So that is a student perspective in terms of, what he gets out of an assessment result. And for a teacher, what is working for the students, what is working well, what can I do as a teacher to help my students more, and which direction should I go next? So an assessment results provide them that information. So it's an informed decision, and when it's an informed decision, it's definitely a better decision. Why is assessment important? There are various things we talked about, but the key thing is learning. It helps the learning. The assessment in itself helps in learning of the student. And when we talk about the tests which are used as a part of the assessment, there are inaccuracies in the test, and the two main reasons for these inaccuracies are the content, whether the test has the component, has the content, what we are trying to test. If suppose you are trying to test the email writing skills of your students, are you giving them the task in that test which is testing that email writing? Do you have enough content in your test which tests that particular skill? So the content part of it and the technique. Are you adopting the right technique of testing in order to test what you want to test, which skill you want to test? You are testing their listening skills. Are you adopting the right technique to assess their listening skills or the speaking skills? Then, of course, the reliability. We always talk about reliability of assessments, and reliability in very simple terms. Would you get the same result for the same student if you were to take this test, or irrespective of the location and the time? So would that particular test give you the similar results? So that is a reliability factor, which is very, very important for quality of an assessment. And obviously, when we look for tests and assessments, we look for standardization, which is the test in the standardized direction? Are the questions standardized? Is the scoring pattern of the assessment standardized? Is there an objectivity in that? And is there equal unbiased opportunity for the test takers? So, is there enough standardization in terms of the test and the assessment? Are you familiar with this term? The English teachers, are you familiar with the CEFR, the Common European Framework of Reference? ASL is the assessment of speaking and learning. That's an assessment. See, actually, this is a standard. It's a standard, standard how to measure. When you talk about measuring the language proficiency, Common European Framework of Reference has been developed for languages, basically the European languages, and it is applicable not just for English, for any European language. It is a standard against which you can benchmark. So it provides more objectivity to an assessment. And what you're saying, ASL, they are kind of standardized against CFR. So, you can, if you say that these are the various levels in a CFR, it starts from A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. A1 is the lowermost level, which is the basic user of the language. So it defines those levels, that if a student or a learner is at that level, what does it mean? What all tasks can that person do? So even the inference of that particular score is standardized. You will infer the same thing if you get that score. So that is a standardization of scores, right? And many assessments, English language assessments, are based on CEFR, which means when you get a scoring, as a result of those assessments, you are able to, as a teacher, you are able to infer what can this student do in terms of listening, what all tasks the student can do, and in terms of speaking. And these scores can be different for all the 4 skills of the language. You can have a different level for speaking, for writing, for listening, and reading. So a student can have a A2 in reading and listening, and maybe a A1 in speaking and writing. So, and the overall CFR scale could be A1 or A2 depending on the individual scores. So that's what it means, and that is what gives you the information on which you can work upon. So just to define these levels, A is the basic user, A1 is beginner, and A2 is elementary. B level is the independent user, which is B1 is a subclassification of B, which is intermediate and upper intermediate. And C is a proficient user, which is the effective operational proficiency and mastery and proficiency. For teachers, the recommendation is to have a C level. They should have a C level. For an English teacher, it is recommended that they should be either at C1 or C2 to be able to, teach the language. Now, these are the major types of assessments. Diagnostic, which is basically telling you about where is the problem, what is the analysis, where is the student lacking, what are the strengths of the student. Formative, which is a mid-course kind of an assessment, which tells you, how is the learning, during the course of the learning, which you have a formative kind of an assessment. Summative is a summarized, at the end of the learning process, you get a summarized assessment. Then benchmarking, which is against a particular norm, referenced norm, and similarly a referenced criteria. Because we just talked about the CEFR, so that is basically used for benchmarking. If you want to benchmark your teachers, your learners, you want to have, like this is a school, but let's say if you're talking about a management institution and which is ready for placements, so they would say all my students should be at a B2 level to be able to get employed. I mean, that may be a requirement of a corporate that we require, and that is normally what happens. In order to have an objective decision, the corporates may define, we want all the students to have a B2 level of English proficiency, and they need to evidence that by taking some assessments. So because when they define B2 level, they have defined what actually they are looking for. Because otherwise, it is all impression-based. When you're taking an interview, it is the impression of the interviewer that, oh, this person's English appears to be good. That is a relative thing. Maybe because from the group of the students, that person may be better, so, he's better. But that's not an objective analysis of his English proficiency. It is an impression-based, analysis, which may not be a right thing when the person goes for the job, because the required English levels for the job may be a B2 objective, kind of a level for English proficiency. Now, in this context of assessments, I would like to talk about Aptis, which is an English language test developed by British Council. It is owned by British Council. It has been developed by the product team of British Council. And we have, in the context of the schools, we have two variants of this product, Aptis for teachers and Aptis for teens. So the assessment is the same. The context of the questions changes when it is for teachers and when it is for teens. When we say teens, it applies to classes maybe depending on the age group which we have in various schools and boards and states. It may differ. It may be from class 6th to 11th, yes? So it is applicable from 13 to 16-year-old. The only difference is the context of the questions is relevant to that particular age group. So as I said, what is Aptis? It's a global English test developed and launched by British Council in 2012. It is an assessment of English proficiency levels for all the 4 skills of the English language. And it is a flexible, adaptable, and easily accessible. So it's a computer-based test which can be accessed through online. You just need to download, take the test, upload, and the results are provided to you within 24 to 48 hours. And these tests, just talking about the assessment, these are assessed by native speakers and the native users of the language, and not the one particular test and all the 4 skills are not assessed by a single assessor. You have different assessors for different tasks. So that removes the bias of assessment, and that is why the reliability factor of these assessments is much more. It is one of the highest. It is 0.96 is the reliability factor. So it tests all the 4 skills, and you can have different packages. So if you want to test only the speaking and listening, you can do that. If you want to test speaking and writing, you can do that. So you can form your own permutation combination. For a particular class, maybe the higher class, you want to only test speaking part of it, you can do that. Single skill you can test test 2, 3, or whatever permutation combination of the skills you want. So there are 15 possible packages as a result of it. Grammar, and now what are the test items? I mean, this is basically now my, next few slides would focus on what are the test items related to each skill focused upon. So in grammar and vocabulary section, the test items are focused upon the grammar items, the collocations, connotations, and fixed expressions. These terms might not be familiar to the non-language teachers, but maybe the English teachers can understand. I mean, these are the various components within the grammar and vocabulary. Under the reading for zest, which is, a kind of précis, and then reading for detail, comprehension, reading for specific information. So these 3 sub-skills are tested within the reading. So the test items focus on these things. Under listening, word and number recognition, identifying specific and factual information, and inferencing. So these sub-skills are assessed within the listening skill. Under writing, the word level writing, short text writing. There are 3 written parts of the text, all of which require responses. So it is not a MCQ type of an assessment. So when you are assessing a writing skill, they need to write. Where we come to, does the assessment have the content which you are trying to assess? So if you're trying to assess their writing skills, then they need to write. So that takes care of that. And then there is formal and informal writing. So both the things, all these components under the writing skill are tested. In speaking, it is the personal information, describe and express your opinion, provide reasons and explanation, compare and provide reasons and explanation, discuss personal experiences and opinion on an abstract topic. So these kind of test items are there within the speaking assessment. Now, what can Aptis for Teachers be used for? For benchmarking, for conducting language audit, for filtering potential future teachers for employment, for filtering current teachers for training or promotion, or for evaluating effectiveness of any English development projects. It could be mainly applicable for certain government projects, or if you're trying to do as a separate language project. So we can do that by applying by using English for Teachers, Aptis for Teachers. Who can take Aptis for Teachers? It's not just for the teachers of English language, any subject teachers, because most of our medium of instruction for every subject is English. So that becomes the, kind of a vehicle through which any information, be it science, social science, is passed on to the student. So if the English language skills of a social science teacher is not adequate, the right knowledge cannot be imparted by that teacher to the students, because the language is a vehicle through which the knowledge is getting imparted. What does the test look like? So these are some snapshots of this computer-based test. These are just the snapshots. There are demo tests available on our website. So if you log on to our website, go to the examination section and go to the Aptis test, demo test. You can definitely take demo tests for all the skills, writing, reading, speaking, and listening. So you can attempt to do those demo tests on our website. Similarly, we have Aptis for Teens, which can be used as a diagnostic test to measure the progress and as a learning tool. To have more information, I think let's look at
In our multinational, multitasking, multi-screen world, the English language is the teenager's gateway to everywhere. For them, English is their search language, their chat language, their entertainment language, their passport to the world language. It's up to us to inspire them and teach them in the most engaging way. The time has come for 21st century teens to get a 21st century English exam, Aptis for Teens. A new and engaging approach to testing the English skills of teenagers from the British Council. Assess and monitor your students' progress in speaking, reading, listening and writing, as well as grammar and vocabulary, with topics relevant to their interests and skills that they need in real life. And you know what? Aptis does not test at a single level. It allows students to demonstrate their ability in all 4 skills without worrying about failing, making this a rewarding experience. It's also reliable, affordable, and convenient. You choose the date that suits your needs and manage the process. And there's no long wait for results. Within 1 week, you'll receive students' results complete with CEFA levels and candidate reports, certified by the British Council, the world's leading expert in English language assessment. Aptis for Teens, the fun and modern approach to testing the English skills of teenagers. A must for all schools.
Right. So that was Aptis for Teens. To sum up, the key things: the age group, it tests English language skills through familiar topics and scenarios. The candidate report provides more accurate description of English language ability. It helps schools to improve the English language levels of their students, and it opens door to future learning, and it unlocks teens' potential to achieve academic excellence. Now, why choose Aptis? The key things: high quality and accuracy of the assessment. There are mix and match skills. You can choose the skills which you want to assess. It's flexible and adaptable content, affordable, accessible, and effective. Quick results turn out. Within, normally between 24 to 48 hours, you get the results. And it is very quick and simple to administer. You can administer it yourself in your school premises, in your computer labs. You can do it on the date as per your convenience. You can schedule it within your calendar. You don't need, we don't have the fixed dates for the delivery of this exam. So that can be done individually by the schools themselves. So these are the key things relevant to Aptis. Thank you so much. Thanks.